What we're going to do today is take assignment number 4 homework. A student who shall remain nameless has acquiesced to being used as a guinea pig, as a cadaver, that we're going to cut up and put it back together again. His homework assignment is here in week 11. Week 11 content. It's called Class 18 Clean Useful Drawings. This ties right into Keith's handout about shitty first drafts. My daughter is a author and librarian and teaches writing classes. And people say, I just don't know where to start. Her advice always is to start in the middle, start at the end, start at the beginning, throw some stuff out there, and then see how it fits. Maybe it's a story that you want to tell, let people know what happened, and then you work up to it. Or you start in the middle of things, go back and forth. And I remember in 6th grade when we started doing like geography research papers before the dawn of time, and we do it on 3x5 note cards. And the idea was you put one idea per card. And I did mine about, I don't know, elephants in Africa or something or other. And you get 30 or 40 or 50 cards, each with just like a sentence or a short paragraph. And then you'd put them in the order that you wanted. Oh, these about food all go over here. These about family life all go over here. And it's sort of the same idea of what we're doing with this assignment. Assignment number 4 is a bunch of things. I asked for plans and elevations and 3D views of different kinds, a schedule, elevations. We even sort of threw these all on a sheet. I think it's fair to say there's not like a lot of thought or design going into this. Ryan's was very nicely laid out sheet. That looked like somebody had thought about where things go and lined them up. Ethan's assignment was modeled quite well, but there was a lot of room for improvement in how it was presented on the sheet. I just started writing down nitpicky things that I or a client or a prospective employer might be looking at your drawings for. And if he saw this, he'd think, well, I don't know, I guess he can use Revit, but he doesn't have a clue about how to present stuff. And drawings are presentations. That's our, what we produce. We don't build the damn thing. We just produce the paper. And to make what's on the paper be as clear and organized and unambiguous and complete as possible is what we're here for. Hopefully we can work through this from the large scale sort of graphic design aspects of things down to the particular how to do a dimension better. Let's start with the sequence and layout of views. Here in the West, we read comic book style, this way and then this way and then this way, or at least or this way if it's a whole page thing. And I think generally there's the beginning of this here where sort of if we're starting over, sort of reading this way and then this way and this way. Okay, here's the big picture. Here's the floor plan. And we notice that it also gives us pointers to these other views to let us know what we're seeing in them. So that's entirely appropriate. It's sort of a matter of preference as where the rest of it goes. These are sort of window dressing that help explain what's actually going on here in the sort of hard drawings. But still they have their own place and give a clear idea of what's going on. And I should point out that if you've got similar pages going on, you've got a sheet of interior elevations, right? Yeah, E4. Well, if we just look at this, living room, kitchen, west elevation, living room, kitchen, south elevation, living room, kitchen, east and north. But you notice as we're going from west to south to east to north, and if we come around to the next one, we're going north to west to east to south, and down here is east to north to west to south. If people are looking at these sort of as if they were photographs taken inside a room, it'd be nice to see those, almost be able to assemble them as a panorama in your head. And to be able to do that consistently, once you learn it for one room, now I know how I'm working this in the other room. I'm always looking north to start with, and then clockwise from there every time. And if we had another page of these, I'd want to see them the same way, same scale, same orientation, same naming patterns. Is the living room kitchen different from the LR kitchen? Stuff like that. And if you do decide to redo this, I would like you to come in, and let's say you renamed this one right here. I would like, and all of you to do this, if you're resubmitting, go to Annotate, a Revision Cloud, and this just puts a marker around the things that have been changed or added. And ultimately you get into revision number 1, revision number 2, revision number 3. We won't worry about that, but that'll clue me in that you fix something here and I should be paying attention to it. And when you send this out from an architecture firm to a contractor, you would always do that with a date and a description and everything, so that the contractor will realize, oh, this one that I got on Monday is updated here, here, and here from the one I got on Friday, so I need to make changes appropriately. You can't just expect anybody to look at a whole set of drawings and realize where potentially minor changes have been made. The shape is sufficiently non-architectural that there's no question about what's going on. And you can either, revision cloud, you can either draw it with lines. Lines. Hitting the space bar before you click the end will flip where it goes. And the tradition is for it to bump out rather than scoop in. Okay. Yes. So back to the first floor plan. So there's sort of the comic book way of left to right if it's sort of small drawings, and also sort of the idea of large view to increasingly detailed view as we go left to right. And that's what's showing up here pretty well. Now, alignment. I'm going to move this group of things just off the page for a bit. And if we look at this group, which are together, I mean, they're sort of a family. This is like the mama duck and the 3 baby ducks, something along those lines. But you wouldn't know it from looking at them because nothing lines up here. You see that here's the floor of this one, here's the floor of this one, here's the floor of this one. They're sort of jumping around. And it's going to help a lot if I think these two are the same. If I pick this one, just grab and drag it. Once you get that light blue line across the middle, then they're lined up horizontally. And all of a sudden that snaps into place as a room rather than as a couple of drawings that didn't have anything to do with each other. I also want to get these drawing titles lined up. I can drag this down. You see this one will light up with that light blue ortho line when it's even with the third view over there. And this is going to be a problem, and I see why it's moved down because we've got these in the way. But that's because these are the wrong tags. I don't even know where this information comes from, to tell you the truth. What we want here, and what we did in class and in the video, I'm going to go load, I'm going to insert, load family, annotations, architectural, casework tag. What we want there is just the simplest base 1, wall 1, something like that we can then refer over to the schedule where the full name of it's going to appear where there's room for it and will be taking up less space. So I do want to load this casework tag and say, okay, overwrite the existing version. Yeah, we'll do all this. So I don't know where all that information came from, but it was not what we wanted to happen here. What I want to have happen in the drawings is for this just to be as concise as possible. So there's not a lot of superfluous stuff on the drawings, all that explanatory text that ends up in the schedule. So we have these nice little ones, A1, A2, B2. Let's get them aligned. I think for this view, the plan view, it's a little unclear what this line might represent. Is that another wall? Is that something or other? I mean, this right here is the border of the view. And I would really like to turn that off. I would like to make that crop region be not visible. And now it's clear what's going on here. Last year, we had the situation where we were doing a building downtown. And when we left that crop region on, it looked like, from the plan view, like maybe that was a sidewalk around the whole building or something or other, which there was, but it wasn't there. So that kind of thing came through. So there's that. I like to save space on a page. I mean, you'll find this out too. If you can fit your whole project on 3 sheets instead of 4, that's just less time, ultimately less money. In a professional situation, you might be making 20 sets of a 30-page bid document. So if it's $5 a sheet, every extra sheet you're putting in is $100 out of somebody's pocket. So you just try to combine them in useful ways. So I think this one, I realized I don't care about this door. I'm going to crop this view a little tighter so I can get this line up closer so I can come down and line these up a little more cleanly. So I'll get into that view. I'll turn the carpet region visible on for a little bit and just drag it up like this, just to get tight to it. And then turn that back off again. Okay, so there's that. I'm going to move it down a little bit. So I'm a little farther away from the border up there. Okay, so now I can drag the view title up, and maybe I'll bring. Okay, well this is we basically never dimensioned the appliances, so we don't need that. What we do need is the distance. Oh, look, your appliance is in the wall here. We'll have to fix that. But what we do want to do is measure from the wall to the cabinet to let the cabinet installers know how far to make them from the wall. So let's just do another one from here to there to that wall. Oh, that's what that was. Okay, so that's going to be a problem because it needs to be, if anything, 2 feet or greater. So we'll leave that for now, and we'll fix this first and then deal with those guys. We don't need this 6'2", and usually interior elevations don't show the wall itself. They come right to the wall. So let's do that. We're going to write, oh, this is the door. Yeah, the door in that wall. But we're coming to here. And I hate this. I wish it would snap to that, but it doesn't. Revit doesn't automatically click to it. So we'll sort of do that over there on that side. And this is a generic wall. We can leave that. You know, I think this worked out well as a way to tag these where it's not on top of them where it could get confusing. So I'm just going to drag this up a little closer. Drag my dimensions up a little closer. That's about the best I can do there. And I click out here to get back to move the title around. And maybe just put it up tight like that. And that means I would like to move this one down so it lines up there. And one thing we'll be getting to is overlaps. Right now, this title overlaps that one. To move the end of the title line, you click in the view, at which point you get a button over here, and then you can drag it back. And I'll do that for all of them. Some people like to have the title line going the whole length of the detail. That's sort of an office policy. Is it just as long as the text, or is it as long as the whole drawing? The advantage of having as long as the text is it's just one less bunch of ink to be confusing. The reason to have it maybe go the whole length of the drawing, let's say from here over to wherever the geometry ends, is if I decide the name of that needs to be much longer, I don't have to then come back in and also change the length of the line. It's a pure graphic design question, then you're the designer. I have tended to make them short, but then I ended up having to stretch them when I changed the name of the drawing. So, you know, it goes back and forth. There is something sort of nice to see. See those all it sort of completes this square of image, you know, sort of from this corner to this corner. So there's a bunch of fiddly stuff just to get things to look okay. And part of that is getting rid of what you don't need. And I know I'm jumping around a little bit, but we really don't need to see first floor, and first floor. So I would just go into each view, double click, pick the level, right click, hide in view. We say category. We don't need to see any levels here in these elevations. So that cleans that up. Double click here. Select it, right click. You'll notice whatever tool you've just picked shows up here at the top, ready just to be used again. Double click, click, right click, add new category. So that really started out being alignment. I'm just going to move these guys down like that and just make that even clearer of what's going on. Sort of implying this guy is responsible for these in a cleaner way than it was before. Let's look at these down here. These are almost the same two views. Really don't learn anything from the one that we don't learn from the other. And this one's a little confusing by virtue of having the wall turned off. So I think I'd stick with this guy and use the space that's freed up by that to make this into a larger and more useful view. Just when we get to that point. But I'm going to get rid of this one right now. But actually, while we're here, this is a good illustration. You'll see how this line just stops here in this 3D view. There's just, we know the room goes by there. And that's because every 3D view, in addition to a horizontal and vertical cropping, has a 3D cropping point. And that's called, if we'll double click into this view, that's called far clip active. And right now, by default, it is in every camera view. And that's so if you've got a large building or a whole complex of buildings in your model or linked into your model, you don't necessarily want to have them all show up outside the window when you're just trying to do an interior perspective. So if we unclick far clip active, then we see that starts showing back up again. And we can decide where we want to have that, stop. But that's, so far clip active, we'll turn that on. And we can set that distance, how far it is from the camera, but it's like an opaquing plane that you can move back and forth away from the camera position. Okay, so there's that, but we're not going to use it, so I'll delete it. So let's say we then move this over here. And this is sort of nice because as we look into the building this way, we're looking into the building this way. So there's a sense of it lining up. Also, they're about the same size, which gives you a sense that this is, there's some relationship going on there. This little guy is just too small. There's no question about that being too small. It's not camera views don't have scale because things are large in front and small in the back, but ortho views all have scale. So we double click in there, go down to scale. Oops, sorry. Pick scale, take it to 1/4 inch equals a foot. And then we can drag it into place where it's, and maybe even, these are all, this is at 3/4 of an inch equals a foot. These are at half, so maybe it goes even bigger than that. Maybe take this up to 3/4 of an inch equals a foot. Or let's take it to 1/2 inch equals a foot. Now, one of the reasons is jumping all over the place. Click outside, grab it, is its crop boundaries are so big that this is actually sort of a big object. I want to make it smaller so we can handle it more easily on the screen. First, I think I'll get in there and rotate it a little bit so it's a more useful view. And so since this one is looking sort of this way, I think I'll make the ortho view sort of look in from this direction to sort of see the fronts of things otherwise. So if we double click to activate that view, if we pick something in there, let's just say the stove, and then use the orbit tool, which is shift middle mouse button drag, we can just rotate around with that guy right in place. Maybe like this. So we see the fronts and the 3D-ness of all those guys. Click out here, and then I'm going to crop its edges down as well. So we're just dealing with a small thing. What we're doing with all of these views is on the page, we're sort of treating them as graphic design elements. And back in the model, we're treating them as an actual building, but they're sort of so if you double click in, we're dealing with it as a building. We move this stuff around, double click out here onto the sheet, and now we're just moving this around as an object, just like a picture in InDesign. But I do want to crop this down, so I'll pick it. I need to turn the crop region visible on. Click it again, double click something or other, whatever it takes to get that to work. And double clicking is sort of how you get back and forth between what in AutoCAD we call paper space, where you're just moving things around on a sheet, and back into what in AutoCAD we call model space, which is just working on the thing itself, on the model itself. So there's that. I'll turn crop region visible off, drag it into place. Well, that's outsized. I want it to be kind of more like this. So if that was 3/4 of an inch and this is half inch, make it 3/8. Well, sort of your call. Make it 1/4 again. Well, that's acceptable to me, a 1/4 inch. As we've been changing the size of that view, its drawing title has moved all around. So I'm going to go get that all by itself and just drag it up. To line that up like that. And then we can drag this up into here. We might end up having more views, so maybe I'll stick it down here where it'd be out of the way of any more 3D views or sections or things come along like that. Maybe even squeeze it in up here. Actually that's a thought because that way it's closer to the objects themselves it's describing. And if we see here, I can make it shallower by making this field longer to that. So these become single words, single lines. And then that could go up there to sort of say, I'm responsible for these three. Part of this whole thing is not making people look too far. I noticed some of you all did not have the elevation symbols in the plan that was on the sheet with these guys, which means you would have to have turned from page A101, which had the full floor plan with the elevation marks, over to this page to see what that referred to. And it's really handier to have the elevation marks here and those actual elevations right on the same sheet. So it's all there on a page. That way you can give this one page, make a copy of this and give it to the cabinet guy. And he has everything he needs. He doesn't need to have 2 sheets or a whole set of drawings, something like that. So there's that looking pretty reasonable in terms of layout, I think. It seems organized. If I do more 3D views, they can go across here, little bunch of details across the bottom. We got room for all that. It's nice to have the horizontal orientations going. But you notice I could also line this guy up with this guy. And again, if you just drag the drawing over, they'll line up together. And this one with that one just sort of gets a clean columnar grid going on. Sometimes they just won't be the right shape. And frankly, I think this one looks a little close to the edge. That's fine with me. I think I'll pull this in to there. Maybe move both of those over. So this is where my artistry comes. This is craft. It's just the craft of putting things together. This is sort of just like our second draft of this. We've got the first draft, everything's there, but now we need to finesse it and check the spelling and get people's names right and that kind of stuff. And I mentioned about similar views having similar sizes. And that's, I think, what made this one so weird when it was tiny, was it just didn't feel like the same space. It just felt real small. So let's look at this thing called clarity. And I start out with avoiding overlaps of views, which we've done. We've de-overlapped them, of dimensions, and of model elements. Let's look at dimensions for a minute. If you want to zoom in on this first kitchen elevation 1, this is 6 inches and that's 0. It's overlapping. So let's de-overlap it. First of all, let's go back to this kitchen elevation number 1 drawing and deal with it by itself on the screen, instead of here on the sheet. Here in views, elevations, kitchen elevation 1. The question here is confusing. This 2'5", does that refer to the refrigerator? I don't care. We don't need to know that. What I do need to know is how far is this cabinet off the wall? So let's get rid of that. And we can either create a new dimension or just add a dimension to this string, which is what I'm going to do, which is edit witness lines. Oh, another thing, is this the wall or is this the edge of the view? Well, right now it says it's a view. If you highlight that, it says it's a view. The reason I asked that is I could have moved this into here and then given like the wrong dimension. So I really sort of like to go just like to the middle of the wall, and to turn the view borders off so they don't act like a thing to be dimensioned or whatever. So if I do that there and turn crop region visible off, then this truly is the wall that I'm dealing with. So let's just kick that over just a tiny, so we'll see that it's not actually touching any of those guys. And then pick the dimension, edit witness lines. Oh, the dimensioning tool is still looking for wall center lines. Let's fix it so we're not picking the center lines of walls for a second. Let's go to DI for place dimensions and change our preference to faces to wall faces. We don't care about the center lines. We don't care about the structural stuff inside the wall. We just care about the face. So I'm going to pick this, edit witness lines, and go to there, and up we go. So this is the only piece of casework we need to locate. So that's good. It's a little, what we like to get is its height above the floor. And coming all the way across the door, and maybe is that to the fan? Okay, let's put this over on this side. Let's just get, oh yeah, I need this off the, I need this guy off the floor. And the place for that is out here. So DI, and we'll come down, and that's the bottom of the refrigerator. So we don't, oh, funny. Well, here's where it would be nice to have that level turned back on. I'm sure this is the line. So I'll just pick there, but which is sort of a funny height, if I could say that, unless that's what it really is. Normally you do those in sort of even increments of an inch. So let's pick that and make it 5'9". Oh, oops. When I dimensioned, I picked part of the fan, not the bottom of the cabinet. I got to move this down, move that out of the way, move this up to here. Now I can pick this and go to 6 feet. Okay, and now we don't need these over here, you notice. And move this up, maybe from corner to corner. Something like that. So I think to be consistent, we'll move this just outside so we don't have any of our annotation on the drawing itself, on top of stuff. But down here, I think I'll move this just to make that clear what's going on. So we have a little bit of a gap between the thing and the line. Okay, so I think that's nice and clean. Now let's go back and see how that's going to look back on the sheet. Looks good. So we got this same tab, edge of drawing tab and dimension, edge of drawing tab and dimension. So I think that's being nice and consistent there. Down here, we're going to have the same issue where we want to put, well, we're going to need to move that guy. Well, let's do that. Let's move this guy, which is now sort of partly in the wall, so that it's entirely in the room. And that's going to be in our, we can go to our floor plan. And that's right here. You see we've got a dishwasher. So I think what I want to do is to move these all at the same time is pick the dishwasher, the control click for the base cabinet, control click for the end cabinet, control click for the sink. And I'm just going to use my arrow key to move them down so I've got a little bit of a gap there. That's not quite good enough. I really want that to be 24 inches, right? So from here to here, there to there, I'll just make be 24. Well, actually, you probably want it to be some more than that because very likely the baseboard is going to have gotten installed along here, along that wall, and then they're going to slide the thing in. So you need a little bit of play. So we'll leave it at this slightly bigger thing. But that's, you never give a carpenter 30 seconds of an inch or 1/16. I mean, an eighth is the smallest. So I really would like that to move down a 32nd of an inch, which will end up being, I mean, for me, I want this to end up being like, say, 2 feet and 1/8. Let's make it 2.5 feet. Dishwasher to there, click. Okay. Dishwasher, 24.5 inches. Okay, good. Right now, these are all, I'm going to go back to wireframe, which makes this clear what's going on. So this is the base cabinet. I'm going to move it from here to here. And then move this guy from here to here. That can stay where it is. Okay, I think that should have it. If we go back to our kitchen elevation 1, sorry, go back to this view. So a lot of jumping around between views. And we do that a bunch. I'm going to kick this guy over just a little bit into the middle of its gap there. And I see that this dimension was attached to the dishwasher, not to the cabinet. So I'm going to redo that and move this from here to here. And then dimension this, the gap underneath for the dishwasher. Okay, I'll pick this, edit witness lines, and go to the wall. Oh, that again, that was the edge of the view. I want to turn that off. That's that jog. There's a jog behind there. Let's see what's going on here. Anyway, really only you, Evan, know what's going on here. Where I want to get is to here, but I think what I was getting is part of, I mean, that's the wall I want. That's a little A little weird. Let's go back. That's the wall. Oh, sorry, wrong. Well, let me understand something here. Just a second. Let me go back to here, and let's understand just where that view is looking. If we double click, we just click on that, double click in there and click on that. That shows us that what's being shown in this view is from that wall. No, it's a little less. See, it's a little tiny bit less. We'll go a little bit outside just to pick up this edge. Isn't this fun? Okay, but now I have something I can dimension to. Right, and there it is. There it is. So that's the actual wall itself. Uh, just to be clear, let's do this. Let's take this all the way outside that wall, just so we can truly understand what's going on there. Okay, so there it is to the wall. Okay, cool. We don't need this. It's already labeled over here. Let's only do the tagging in the elevation view. Okay. We don't need this 6'2" thing. Don't know what that was meant to be. Length of the yeah, but it's going into the wall. I think we'll just do that in plan. It's a little funny that it ends right there. I'm going to pull that in just a touch. Usually there's like a 1-inch overhang. I think that's clean. I'm going to let you worry about this guy. Yeah, enough's enough. We can't solve everything for you. But again, we don't want to see this. We don't want to see this. We don't want to see that. We don't want to see that. Only in the front elevation views, then you got everything covered. Oh, I guess we do want here. We'll call this out in size, but I guess we do want the height of this. So let me pick this again, edit witness lines, and go back to there. So I think that's pretty clean in terms of overlaps of how the views used to overlap and they don't, how objects used to overlap and they don't. Oh, let's look at dimensions for a sec. Well, let me just draw a line. Let me go back to my first floor plan. If I want to dimension, let's say from here to here, and then to there, and then to there for some reason, I got all these dimensions stacked up on top of each other. And the way to pull them apart is to select one of them, actually select that whole string, at which point this little button that controls where the text for that is lights up. And then I can just click and drag and pull that out like that. Pull that one out like that. And frankly, pull this one out like this. And you'll see that part of the problem is I've got 0 feet space dash space, just taking up lots of room. So we can edit that dimension style to only show the inches. If there's feet, it'll show feet, but if there's no feet, it won't show anything. So we can just pick this, edit type, no duplicate, just a change, and we'll scroll down to units format. That 0 feet thing is sort of set in the project as a standard. We're going to say, don't use the standard. Do our stuff to the nearest 1/8 of an inch and suppress 0 feet. And what's more, if there are feet, subtract the spaces around that hyphen. So make everything as tight as it can be. Still entirely legible. Okay. So now we have that, which is, at that point, these guys could probably come back. And for these, you can choose whether to have a leader or not, but usually a leader is a good idea. That's over here in properties. But I think you really want it to tell what's going on there. So little by little, we're making this more and more useful to everybody who needs to look at it. Sometimes that's the client needing to know, is that the cabinet that I'm going to store my cookie sheets in? Sometimes it's the carpenter needing to know, how far off the wall do I need to put this? A lot of people can be looking at these. Okay, so we've avoided overlaps of views. We've avoided overlaps of dimensions. And with the, with moving the dishwasher, we've avoided overlap of model elements. Yeah, it's great to see all this stuff. Sometimes we just don't want to see things. They're just in the way. And I think that would be a case for this view right here, where it looks like it's all about the windows. So there are a number of things we can do. The first would be, if we go to the our first floor plan, we can see that this view is looking all the way down to here, which is probably across the street. We can just pull this up to here somewhere. And now this view will only look that far. So they just disappeared entirely. You might want to draw a line for the floor or something, at that point. But if you would like a more environmental sense of them, you still will like them there to sort of show how the sink lines up with the middle of the window, whatever silly thing happens to be. So we'll go back to do that. Go back to this view. And we can halftone these. Any object you want, you can select it, control click, right click, override graphics in view. Well, we could even do by category. I could have just said, pick this one, right click, override graphics in view by category. So all windows will be halftoned in this view. Okay. Okay, so there they are, halftoned. And maybe this, this wall is, so the wall is strong, the windows are halftoned. Let's turn thick lines on. So here's the wall that we're cutting through in section. Heavy. Here are the things we're looking at in elevation, and here are the things that are halftoned. That's still too strong. I would like it to be look like a foggy day in this kitchen. I can just barely see those. So I'm going to undo that. And there's one cool tool we have in here. Activate this window, make it live. In graphic display options, we have this thing called depth cueing, which makes things fade as they get farther away. Atmospheric perspective, the mountains, as they get farther and farther away, they get lighter and lighter. So if we turn depth cueing on, we want to show depth. And I always forget how this works, but I think it means near things. Let me just put this halfway and say apply. That was too far. We can sort of dial those in as light as we want. So that gives a good sense of this being cut, these being near us, and these being far away. So we can see, well, our sink isn't lined up, but we can see what that relationship is. And you can change the strength of the fade. I guess that's most, that's light. And then these are the distances away from us that it's happening. So I don't use this a lot. Where it's helpful is with buildings, when you're looking at them in elevation, and there are a bunch of different planes near and far, you can make the near ones be dark and the far ones be lighter, and get a sense of three-dimensionality that way. Okay, so there's that, and that applies only to that one view, but I think that's a clearer sense of this. If we want to further downplay the windows, we can pick the window and uncheck the indicator visibility, which is the up-down arrows. And then you can decide how you want to deal with the mullions by way of the detail level. If you do detail level fine, you'll see them as double lines. If you do medium, you'll see them as single lines. If you do it as coarse, you don't see them at all. So you get to choose that level of finesse. And I think that looks, that tells the story that we want to tell. You could do the same thing here for this door to downplay the door, as you want. We're going to let you mess with that. Okay, so the next thing I have here is completeness. You have all your elements, you have tags, and only the tags that you want. And I think here you really don't have much casework, do you? Just 2 pieces, 3. So let's, if we want to move this around, we can drag it up here. Just to be consistent. It'll work somehow, right? There we go. That can go. I think this one, I tag this here in this plan, which is where you really see it. Well, this is up to you, actually. Maybe the best place to do it is here, which is the elevation view of the rest of the stuff that's inside it. So I would go to annotate, tag by category, tag by category. Oh, have to make that view active. Tag by category, there we go. And then we can use this to move it up. Yeah, it attaches to the middle of whatever side it's on. So I can't just put it any old place. But I could do this. Put that in the middle of the window so it's easy to see. That's probably the best place to do that, since you're already in that view looking for casework tags. So the person's going to need to know how far off the wall I think I do dimension from there to the back of the might be clearer. To say something like that. We need to know where to put these cabinets in plan. That's the trick. We know how far off the wall. We need to know where everything, how big everything is, and where everything is. We haven't dimensioned the countertop, which I think we need to do. And that's so funny because its name is 48-inch depth, which is not what we want it to be. And all those are going to want to be to the nearest, let's say 1/4 inch. We're not going to give it 7/8, so you'd edit that to be the right size. That's just done. Oh, here you can do it right here. 2'6" by 5'8". Okay, so that's pretty crisp. Oh, here's another nice thing. If you grab the main box, you can move this around to be where you need it, and that line will not change. If you move, it's like if you move the thing itself, that's like moving it. Okay. So to be safe, move elevation marks like this by the center box, and the views will not be changed. There's something else we can do with this view, the 3D view, which let's say this is exactly the angle we want, but we've just got stuff in the way of it. I've just got a door and a wall in the way of this end of the kitchen. And if I go higher, that's higher than I want. If I go around this way, that's not the view I want. This is where I want to be. But I've got this stuff in the way. There are really three options here. One would be to hide them. Let's just do that. Right click, hide in view elements. That's okay. Especially if we're just zooming in like this and don't care about that. Control C. Let's look at the transparent option. Would be to pick these three guys. There's two walls and a door. Right click, override graphics and view by element, and we can make them, let's say, 80% transparent. Well, that's not working too well. They're transparent, but they haven't lost darkness on their edges. So if we want transparent plus that, then we'll pick them again, right click, override graphics and view by element, and halftone them. So it's there if you want. If you need to keep a sense of the window opening, for instance, something like that. What I would suggest in this whole process, however, is to use a section box, which is a section sort of cuts through the building one way. A section box cuts through the three-dimensional object. So we pick this view and check on section box in properties. We get this big guy here right now, which is what's inside it is what will remain visible. So if I just pick this side and drag it into right there, then we just cut the building right there, which I think is a pretty clean way of doing this. We don't have to hide stuff. We don't have to remember to turn things back on. We just have this section box. And it can come in from this direction too, just as long as we're at it. And then if we go back on the sheet, we can pick the section box itself and hide it so we don't see it. Hide in view element. So you might want to say something like the name of this view would be view from above with walls removed or something along those lines, just to make clear that what's happening. Let's cut a section through this this guy, or let's say through the whole building. I want to cut a section right through this middle of that window, and then I would like it to go through the sink. But let's see, view section through the window out the other side. But I just can't quite get the window and the sink usefully in the same section. And if we go here, so here's the window, and I see the sink, but I'm not actually cutting through it. What I can do to actually go through the sink is to jog the section. So the cut will come along here and jog up and then go through the middle of the sink. And to do that, I just click on this guy. No, sorry. I click on split segment, cut it right here, and move this part up to there. So now we'll come down the middle of the window, jog there at the door, and come down through the middle of the sink. Let's see what that looks like. So now I'm truly coming down through the sink itself and through the hole. That can be disorienting to people who don't know what they're looking at, especially if it's a big jog, but it's all there in the plan to people who do know what's going on. Something I like to point out here is something that you really can't tell from the plans or the 3D views, which is that this exhaust fan is not in the right place. Range hood, it's set back into the wall, and I think we just want to move it like that. Okay, so there are these guys. Good, the stove's against the wall, the refrigerator is off the wall. These two guys are lined up right. Let's go back here. Let's take a little break and then come back in 5 minutes to talk about title blocks and names and numbers and that kind of stuff. So if I were Ethan wanting to note where things had been updated, I'd place revision clouds. It's kind of hard. At some point, I might just go, I might then just annotate with text saying dimensions updated or something like that. So I hadn't really done any geometry, but I'm just doing that. And that's fair. Okay, a couple of things here. I'm done at the bottom. I'm sort of at drawing titles, I guess, length of line. Right now, these are numbered. Different views are numbered according to the order in which they were placed on the sheet. So I would like to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I've got 4, 1, 2, 3, 7, and 5. But that's entirely normal. There are some third-party applications you can run in Revit that let you say, okay, renumber these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're gonna have to sort of do it by hand, like the room numbers and doors earlier. I'm gonna just try. Let me just pick this one. It's easy to do. You pick the view and then pick its number over here in properties. I'll make that be 6. I'll make this be 5. And I think when I get to this one, I'm going to say I want this to be 4. But it says it's already in use. Enter a unique number. We just can't have two number 4s on the same sheet. So I'm due for these 4 across here, which are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1, 2, 3, 4 in some weird order. I'm just going to number them like 8, 9, 10, 11, and then come back and redo them to what I want them to be so they don't overlap. Pick that one. 8, 9. It's silly. 10, 11. And then I just come back and I could have done this to be number 1, I guess that time. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you don't really want to do that until you've got them in the order on the sheet that you want. Otherwise, you're just keep doing it again and again and again. But that way they read left to right, sort of comic book style, across one row, across another row. And I mentioned earlier that some firms, especially when you're dealing with large sheets and big sets like 30 or 40 drawings, it's a real pain if you're looking for drawing number 1 to have to roll back a whole wad of drawings to be able to get to number 1. So they start with number 1 down here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Just another way of doing it depending on your particular trade in the firm that you're working in. Now, one thing that Ethan has completely blown here is the naming in the title block. What goes here, where he says first floor plan, is the name of the sheet, and that really should be kitchen. Down here, which is the drawing number, would be like A1 or A2 or A101 or something rather like that. But no big deal. We'll just pick it, double click. Let's call this A101. And then we'll change this to, and this isn't truly just even a kitchen plan. This is the kitchen. All sorts of views here. And the other sheet would be interior elevations and 102 or something. We'll talk about the numbering at some point. But now you notice when we get here, Ethan, up here in the kitchen plan, it doesn't say number 4 on Ethan's kitchen plan. It says number 4 on sheet, the compact indexed sheet number. We can change the names of these. You might have noticed this came in, it was a copy of the first floor plan, copy 1, but we don't want it to say first floor, copy 1. I would like this to say, I've got 2 ways to rename it here on the sheet. One is I can just rename the view. And let's try that. Let's try the floor plan view. Let's rename that to be right click, rename kitchen plan. And then when we get back to the sheet, that's renamed kitchen plan. If we would like it to say kitchen plan here, just so we keep track of everything going on, but we would like to say something extra here, like enlarged kitchen plan. We can click on it, click on the view here and its properties, where we see its name is kitchen plan. We can also give it a new title on the sheet, just right here. It won't change up here in the project browser, but it will change here. Let's say title on sheet is enlarged kitchen plan. Enter. So that'll change here. Although it remains kitchen plan, so sort of more compactly up here in the project browser, where you might not want long view names, so the browser window can stay narrow. A lot of times, instead of kitchen elevation 1, 2, 3, we would say something like, depending on which direction they were, north, south, east, west, like that, the direction that you're looking when you're creating that view. Here, I would change this to be, I would change this view to be, instead of 3D view 3, I would just change it over here, right click, rename kitchen perspective. And this one to be kitchen. This is just plain 3D. Rename kitchen AXO. And I think that should be, and I would change these to north, south, east, and west, just with rename over here. Oh, it'd be these right here, wouldn't it? Yeah, we just rename those. That's appropriate. Well, let's look at the schedule again. The problem with this is, what we would like to get is the dimensions of these units. So the casework builder will know exactly what to build. So I think it was on the instructions. Instead of just the family we want to know what that is, upper cabinet, double door. But type is any random, we can just type anything in there. What we want are the actual dimensions here, not the type, but the actual dimensions. So I'm going to pick this, double click, and the fields I want here, I don't really need this type right here. The fields I want are the width, the height, and the depth. And we can get rid of this. So what it looks like, and I'm going to bring count down to the end. So type mark W1 family. In here, we're going to put the actual dimensions and then how many of them there are. Okay. Apply. Oh, and then comments will, fields. Comments will move that down to the very end. Okay, good. Now I'd like to make these easy to find. Let's imagine there's 50 of them, different, or 10 different kinds. I would like to have these in alphabetical order. You know, A1, A2, B1, B2. So that's all here in sorting and grouping, where we want to sort by type mark. Okay. A1, A2, B3 like that. And this was in the original video, but here it is again. And right now you don't have any duplicates of these, but let's get into our plan. And let's just say that you had two of these guys over the ones over the sink. So this guy, I'm just going to make two of these. Okay. And what happened is, back here, I've now got two A1s, each counted one time. What I would like is a single line with the count being two. What we do there is go into the casework schedule, go into sorting and grouping, and instead of having this checked, itemize every instance, like each A1 separately, we uncheck it, at which point it will combine those and say there's a count of two on this for these guys. And there that is. So we'll go back to kitchen. So there we are with two A1s and A2 and the rest of them like that. I'll go get rid of that. And it updates, but now it's ready. If you do duplicate them, it will do that. I said some here at the very bottom, I said, learning from your drawings. And it wasn't really until we were in this view and we saw that the dishwasher was disappearing into the wall that there's a problem here. So you can, your 3D drawings are not only good for presentation, but they're also very useful as a way of seeing if you got everything in the right place. Like that's where this guy showed up wrong. Your the vent fan, it was set back into the wall, sort of the same way that the dishwasher was. So I think this is something this could be part of your portfolio. It's clean. Once you've done them, you get rid of the revision clouds. Okay, let's wrap up that. Let me conclude by showing how I created the family for the angled opening in the wall of the stone barn, in case you need to do something similar ever. Let's get a new default open. Okay. So I started out with with a wall that I edited it and made it 19 inches thick, just to sorry, cancel duplicate, generic 19-inch, and then made 19 inches thick as a test bed for this. And what I found out was when I go to file, let's do this wrong, file new family. I'm going to scroll down to be a window. What Revit provides here is like a dummy wall, and the only thing in it to start with is this thing called an opening cut. And this is just a two-dimensional shape, in this case, a rectangle, that will just drill right through however thick your wall is. You don't have to say 19 inches, you don't have to say 18 inches. It'll just drill through right ever. So if I want to just change that, edit sketch, I'll just put an arch top on it. Okay, load into project. No. So there's that, and here's our 3D view. 3D view. So there's that. Just however thick that wall is, that it's punched right through it. However, yours is angled. So I can't use that thing. So what I'm going to do is go into edit that family. I'm going to get rid of the opening cut, which doesn't look very promising. But here's where I put in that void. Revit walls know that windows cut holes. So what I'm going to do here is just get into the plan view, and I'm just going to ignore all these dimensiony sort of things. I could do that, but here's our center of it. I'm going to create void extrusion. And that was 6 inches at the front, right? Here's my 6 inches. move. That's to the move from the middle of that to there. And then one that's 19 inches long back here on that wall, and move from here to here. And these are attached to the front and back of the wall, so they'll travel with that, regardless of the thickness of the wall. Pretty sure that's how I worked it. And we'll connect these like this. And we'll make the whole thing. Okay, those all meet. The whole thing was 3'8" off the ground. Let's say 3'8". And went up 16 inches, which is to 5 feet, Okay. Sorry. Here's the family. Luna Project enclose. Yes. I'm going to call it, sorry, my Rivet families. Windows, angled Farmington opening. There we go. Okay, so there's our little guy. And the one thing that's a little weird is when you look at this in plan, it doesn't show up, even in wireframe. So I had to go back into the family, edit family, reference level plan view. And I had to just draw, annotate what are called symbolic lines of the same shape. It's funny, I can't even see it here. Can't even see the thing here. Move there. Copy this from here to here. Pick that, make it 19 inches. Symbolic line from this end to this end, from this end to this end. So I now have that shape just as lines. Control S. Yes. Luna family enclose. Yes. Level 1. So there. So now we're actually not seeing the whole. We're seeing those lines that I just drew. Even though the cut plane is at 4 feet, and that's right within this wall, within this window, didn't work anyway. So that's what that is. So it's just one negative shape plus 4 lines. Okay, I think we can wrap it up.